Hey, everybody. Self-care challenge day 12. 12 already. Today we're talking about communication in the throat chakra, so throat chakra healing. And in the best you, we are on the letter Y of you. So speaking your truth. What is true for you? Again, let's not get hung up on, and I say it that way because some do, right? Like this assumption that we're trying to force our own personal truth onto everybody, and that's not it at all. It's not saying that it's different than what's actually true. It's just speaking, us having the ability and feeling free and okay to speak what our opinions are, what is our perspective, what would be true for me, right? So that's all at least I'm speaking of when I talk about speaking your truth. So communication styles, how do you communicate? Do you guys journal on this? Are you aware, right? Aware, assess, and align. So are you aware of your communication style? Do you assess and determine, is this how I want to communicate? Is it in alignment with how I want to communicate? Am I communicating from that space of my highest self, that unconditional love, right? And if not, what steps can we take to then align with that? So when we think of communication, remember we're talking about how we speak out, even our physical body expressions. How we express ourselves in the many ways. So for some, it might be like in art and drawing and writing, music, right? And also how we listen. So our listening styles. Do we listen actively or reactively? So that works both ways, right? I used to speak very reactively and I used to listen very reactively. So therefore, I acted, my actions were very reactive, right? So when you think of like trauma responses or that low vibrational frequency and energy, similar to that of the root chakra, being in that fight, flight, freeze mode and what that looks like, we don't typically, some may, I'm just saying what I've seen and what I've experienced, we don't typically communicate well actively when we are in that space or that energy of fight, flight, and freeze, right? So whether we speak quickly and defensively as we're projecting things out and we get really loud because we want to be heard, because we feel very passionate, but not passionate like in the yay, I'm just so passionate about the situation, but that passionate like I need to be heard and it's my way and this is what I'm saying and this is, because I feel like I need to fight my way through a situation. And sometimes it might look like not saying anything at all, not hearing anything at all, right? Just shutting things down or feeling like we've shut down completely. All of that all of that energy comes in and can gunk up the energy in the throat chakra, right? So that's a lot to consider. I just blurted out a whole bunch for you to process. So let me know if that resonates for any of you, if you have experienced that before, or if this is kind of new to you. So I like to talk, if you're new to me, I like to go deep, right? We have many of layers, and I like to kind of shine the light on those layers for myself and walk in my own talk, and to be supportive when you, I don't want to say if, when you do it for yourself as well. So if you have taken the 7-day chakra healing challenge, you should have access to the chakra healing cheat sheet, right? So I have a page of some different things that we can use each day. Some are quick, easy things, and others are take a little more time. So as we journal, right? So again, showing up on these lives is my way of journaling, is my way of walking my talk, but also to help support you, because what I say is I like to create an energy healing lifestyle, right? So it's living the things, the healing technologies, techniques, and modalities that I have learned, actually incorporating them, implementing them, applying them, living them in my own life, sharing some of that with you and supporting you in doing the same. So when I say, I think sometimes it's misunderstood when I say live an energy healing lifestyle, that's what I mean. That whatever the modality is that you have learned to help you manage with this human life experience, that you actually continue to apply them. So many of us want to speak out about them and teach them, but then we skip ourselves again. Or we do a lot of really great inner work, but we think there's like a stopping point, right? I'm done now. Did all I need to do. Now I can go teach. Well, it's not one or the other, it's both. As we continue to clear out our layers, we continue to move through our layers, we continue to practice and implement the techniques and modalities that we've learned. And while, right, while we reach out and help support and teach others to do the same who are interested. So it's not a one or the other. Again, I think that's a humanness perspective, having that linear mindset, or we think of steps like you have to do, which sometimes this is true depending on the situation, but in life, it's not always step one, step two, step three, as in you have to go in order and you have to complete before you reach the next one. Some things, again, there are, but in life, it's not really that linear, right? Energy moves in and out and up and down and back and forth, and then it circles back around and does all kinds of interesting things. So it's not just linear. We continue to heal, we continue to grow, we continue to have life experiences. Sometimes we have memories that are stored within us, within our energy body, that we're not yet aware of. But as we continue healing ourselves, as we continue clearing out those layers, then it allows the opportunity. That's a really nice way of saying it, because sometimes it doesn't feel that lovely. But we can allow that opportunity for it to surface, for it to come up into our awareness. So then, now that it's in our awareness, we can assess where we're at with it and get into alignment with it if we're not already, right? So back to the chakra healing cheat sheet. Again, we can use healing hands. So if you just rest your hand on the throat chakra or around the throat chakra or wherever you feel drawn to. Sometimes for me, it's my jaw, right? So I've had sometimes in that awareness that I get flare ups still, but TMJ. So a lot of like jaw clenching and, pain and whatnot in the jaw. Wherever you're led to hold your hands, sometimes it's the shoulders or around the neck, right? It's not just this one pinpoint spot right here in the throat. It's all of this around. Sinus area as well. So when I think of seasonal allergies, right, and that sinuses, I can share with you that it's been amazing that I used to have terrible issues with sinuses, with allergies and whatnot. Sorry, I just heard the door, so someone's here. And after Reiki, after I was receiving Reiki, before I even learned how to do it, but just even receiving Reiki, it helped clear that out. And I have not had the issues that I used to with allergies. It's beautiful. It's such a relief. The color for throat chakra is actually light blue. Again, I'm wearing black today, which is kind of drawn to the black. Energies are still kind of wonky around here. I'm not sure, where you're from. I'm in Ohio. The weather has been horrendous. I woke up again at almost midnight at the end of a tornado warning. And then I was surprised, like I was making sure my eyes were seeing clearly because I was woken up. Because it sounded like it was like right here, right now. It wasn't that bad. It just sounded terrible. The wind was so intense and was whistling and stuff. So like I could still feel some of that, wonky energy. We had some tree limbs down. Nothing. We're lucky though. Like nothing major. Nothing like some of our other local people have had to experience. But again, so I'm drawn to wear the black, try to deflect, right, and not absorb all that negative, heavy, weird, wonky energy for me today. But typically, it's like a lighter blue that we would wear that resonates with the throat chakra. The solfeggio frequency is 741 hertz. And our affirmations, our reflections would be I speak, right? And I would incorporate I hear as well. And again, we don't have to start like each sentence with the word I speak, but be mindful of how you speak, how you express yourself. You can use those words too, right? So anything that really talks about self-expression. And the element of the throat chakra is space, right? So when you think of that active listening, that space around you, being open to hearing whatever we need to hear fully, not shutting it down or blocking it off or interrupting it or only picking up on pieces of it, right? But being really open and mindful of what might be coming in. So that could be from the human, that could be from spirit, that could be from any, right? Hey, looky here. Sorry, I was on a roll. On a roll. Iona says, hey, lady. Hi, Iona. Thanks for hopping on here, loves. What is up with the jumping on live early? It's only 5 minutes. That's funny. It was so bad with sinuses and allergies. They can be awful, right? It used to be. So again, so much gratitude. I don't have to deal with that anymore. It used to be almost like clockwork. As soon as the fall season hit, and whatever's in the air, the ragweed or goldenrod, I don't remember, but something that's in the air would trigger so badly. And then I would get sinus infections every stinking fall, like clockwork. But knock on wood, again, so much gratitude. It's been a while. And if I've started to have a type of sinus infection, because not like I never have them, but they've been so rare and they don't last as long, I've been able to clear them out mostly myself. I think there's only been one in the past 7 years that I couldn't get rid of on my own, that I went finally to see a doctor over. But yeah, I'm so much gratitude to keep that cleared out. Anna says, yeah, black for me again. Something's going on. I mean, I ain't trying to figure it out or spend all that time focusing, just that awareness and moving through it, right? We do what we can. Sometimes we just need to be aware that something's going on with the energy. Just like that whole concept of, for us empaths, right? Empathic healers, observe. I was looking for that word. Observe, don't absorb. So it's okay to be aware that there is something. I don't have to grab it and dissect it, right? I could just do what I need to do to take care of me so that I don't add to it, right? Because if I just allow it to suck in and I grab it and internalize it, then I can end up adding more of the same icky energy. And I obviously don't want to do that either, right? Very lucky. Yeah. Hey, Rebecca. Rebecca says, hello, my beautiful lady. How are you, love? Thanks for being on here with me as well. How are you doing? Rebecca's laughing. Or Iona's laughing. Yeah, I know, right? Do you remember me having them? I do. I remember you talking about hay fever, right? You would talk about having hay fever and stuff. Yeah. And it says, I think something was wonky when I was going through my spiritual ascension. I think a lot of things get wonky in that process. Just saying. Just saying. I think there's lots of wonky energy through that whole process. Some other things we might notice, since we're talking about some symptoms, right, of gunky energy or layers coming up to be released in the throat chakra is like thyroid problems. You think about the thyroid being right in here, sore throats. So I shared before that I think I shared before, used to get strep throat and tonsillitis like a lot. And then they finally took my tonsils out when I was 17-ish. And then in my 40s, I think it was my 40s, they grew back. And I've had, I think, strep throat one time since then. So at least not like how it used to be. But again, and I've shared before, like the throat chakra is a big one for me, like a very big one, because I have had the tendency, watch my choice of words, that communication, right? I have had that tendency to either to go one extreme or the other, shut down or overspeak. And both is a lot of like human is ego stuff, right? So working on clearing it out to have that balance to be able to, in a sense, they say pick your battles, but that's just one way of saying that, keeping my ego in check, really. So I'm not over speaking, finding those moments to just pause and breathe and check in with myself. So I'm aware, is what I'm thinking is what is about to come out of my mouth from a space of human ego or a space from higher self, right? It's a process, and I'm still, and I think that's okay that we are still can be in that process of learning, checking myself, because I want to check my ego. I don't want to just let it spew out junk, because it can spew out some icky junk, right? It's not the energy I'm trying to keep feeding and cycling. We want to clear that stuff out. So sometimes those moments of pause, it's not the same as shutting down. It's just moments of, let me process and reflect and see how I feel about that. Make sure I'm clear, make sure I'm hearing it all. Sometimes like replaying in my mind, or, if you can, if it's like video or audio or something like that, you can actually replay it and re-listen to something. But making sure that you're hearing something correctly, you're hearing it as it's being said, not from a level of our own stuff. If we have any gunk that's filtering and then redefining things or misunderstanding basically some things that are being said. So that is a big process for our throat chakra in that area. stiff neck, shoulder pain. I've shared before, like intentions and whatnot. I hold all that in my shoulders, so it's all affecting and being affected by the energy in the throat chakra. You may also experience like nightmares, difficulty concentrating, again, having that difficulty with communication or not fully hearing things as they're being said, or getting really confused, right? All of those things deal with the throat chakra. Let me catch up on some. Okay, here we go. Rebecca says, I have the worst sinus issues, right? So do you make those connections with the throat chakra? Rebecca says, you tend to shut down more than overspeak now. It's become a skill. I used to overspeak a lot. Pausing and shutting down are different, very different. They are very different. But I think that's why that you notice that more is because I had to learn it. It was a skill I didn't have before. So in my younger years, I was quick to overspeak, and I overspoke loud and proud, and I didn't much give a care. My ego was pretty harsh, you guys. Like, I'm glad that you all don't notice that or see that in me most of the time. I think you get glimpses every now and again. Someone rubs me, like really trips my little ego's trigger. And I know that you both have been someone I can be like venting about that, right? So you get glimpses of it here and there, but it used to be pretty harsh. And I'm not trying to pull that back in, right? So for me, I prefer to get quiet and process and really check in with me to see how much of what I want to say is coming from, again, a space of ego or a space of higher self, because that's important to me. I want to communicate better, right? So like in Iona's world, as I say, part of it, we're all part of it in a sense. The Soul Legacy Academy and Spiritual Biz YouTubers Network and the Soul Legacy Journal. Today is Relationship Freedom Friday. And what is most important in our relationships, in my opinion, or way up there anyway, is communication. So how we communicate with each other to make sure that we can be heard, right? And we're hearing the other people. So whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, your family relationships, whichever ones those may be, right? You want to make sure that you're able to express yourself in a way that can be heard. Not that we're responsible for everybody's triggers, but still we want to speak from a space of highest self, speak from a place of love, not from like defensive ego stuff, right? Let's see. Rebecca says, now you have gone to the other extreme. Sometimes, not always. Iona says, not going to lie, I prefer to talk it out, but I respect your process. Yeah, because sometimes for someone who doesn't talk it out very well, when ego wants to take over, then that would not be a good process. And then you would appreciate my silence a little bit more. I'm just saying. I know me, like I've been around me my whole life. So I know how icky my ego can speak. Anna says, I love our bond and understanding how the other person communicates. Me too. And I do learn from, like, I hear it out, right? So it is nice to hear how other people express and how other people like choices of words and explain and whatnot. And we can continue to learn from each other. It is beautiful. Rebecca said, that's true. We need to communicate. Well, yeah, right? Because what happens if, like, when I overspoke, then some people shut down around me, and that's not what I'm trying to do. It's not a power and control issue. I mean, it was in my world then, but it's not now. So I don't want that. That's not the goal, right? The goal of communication is to be able to share and express and hear each other. So whether you can be in, like, say, an agreement and you're like, oh yeah, me too, or you're like, well, not really me, but is there a space in between, or is there just an understanding? As sometimes, Rebecca, remember, we used to say often in some situations that we just agree to disagree and be okay with that, right? In my younger years, I would not be okay with that. I would be offended by that. I had no understanding of what that actually meant. I had no understanding of, well, like, because I was trying to find a way to explain that. Like, I personalized too much at that point in time in my life that I couldn't grasp the idea that people could have two different opinions and still be fine. Like, it wasn't against me, right? Like, everything felt against me. It's not against me, just different. And that's okay. Like, we're supposed to be. So how we communicate that really matters, right? And being able to hear it from that space, like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. That's where you're at, and this is cool. This is where I'm at. That's just one of those things that we don't have in common. Okay, like, okay, that took a long time for me. I don't know, maybe. Again, I think I appreciate more that it's not seen from me anymore. So I don't want to bring that back into my world. But again, if anybody's watching replay too, or whoever else is on, if that resonates, let me know. Or at least be aware for yourself. Sometimes we don't want to put that out there, right? And it says, oh, I just got another example. Did you? Rebecca says, yes. Yes, I prefer to talk it out. Yeah. And it says, I get that. I hear you in the silence. Yeah, sometimes. Truth, same. Right, right. Values. It is values. And it is our truth, right? And that, which is okay, right? Again, when you compare the old way of thinking before a lot of stuff was healed and cleared, and not that I'm done with it, but healed and cleared, it looks very different. So it's interesting now to be in a space to observe that, to be able to look back and be like, whoa, what I see now, well, you guys see now is like, because you've shared this with me, it's kind of like, oh, you don't say enough, you don't stick up for yourself, you're too quiet, or you shut down, or you're what are the other words I'm hearing? Resisting, probably personalizing. I don't know, all of them. Sometimes it's just processing, like literally, because I've got other things on my mind too. So making space in my head to process things. And then sometimes I realize that, like, again, I allow my ego to vent in situations because we do that. We are still humans having human experiences, right? In a way so that I can release it, which is a very big difference than trying to speak it to keep it alive, to keep feeding it the energy, to keep it going, right? I think we can notice how there's very much differences in that. And again, in the past, I would say I probably spoke it out more, wanting to vent it out, but yet would get stuck in cycles, right? Where the ego would continuously feed and feed and feed and cycle and cycle and cycle that same kind of energy over and over and over. Like, don't let it go. We got to keep it alive. We're not done yet. Let's keep it alive. So learning how to break that cycle, wow, that just made me lightheaded even talking about it. Learning how to break that cycle, right? To be able to vent it, to release it, or discuss it and release it, talk it out and process through to release it. That's a very different energy. And that's amazing. Like, that is true healing. And I absolutely love that. And it says our vibrational frequency has to match for there to be a level of understanding. Yeah, you can't have someone like in the trenches and have someone like flying high and expect there to be a full, right? It doesn't work very well. And it says a processing as we go, we say it out loud. And I love that too, right? I know, it's beautiful. Words have energy. And when you are aware, you assess and align. And that might be done out loud. It can be. It's different for every person, which I think is fine, right? Like, you have your way of processing out. There are times when we hop on those voice notes, right? And we're just like, and we'll say, like, I'm just processing and just speaking it out, right? Speaking it through, hearing it, working it through, right? And sometimes I at least have a process of doing it on my own. So it's to each our own, right? We all have our own ways. I don't think that we all have to do everything the same, which is cool, which is part of our truth, right? Being able to say, like, this is my way and this is my way. And okay, coolness. Let's see what else. And it says, I meant not be done out loud. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Right. Exactly. See, I said it anyway. I caught it. I caught what you was throwing down. We're good. Yeah. And the voice notes we do out loud. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. Sometimes it can just depend on moments for us, right? Which is fine. And it's fine. And I love that. And I love the level of, and here's another cool thing that I like. When we get to that space where even if we're not in full understanding yet, there's still that level of acceptance, right? It's just being okay with what is. That's it. Like, I don't understand yet, but I will. And that's okay. That's part of learning. That's part of the process. It's part of learning each other. It's part of relationship freedom, right? Relationship Freedom Friday. It's part of that communication. Is that allowing, not forcing? You don't have to, back in the day, I wanted to force, right? I wanted to know right now. I wanted to understand right now. And I was trying to demand it and make it happen and force it. And it didn't work out very well, you guys. I'm just being honest. So that wasn't clear in my throat either because I wasn't expressing it well. I wasn't supporting it well. So therefore, it wasn't productive and beneficial to anyone. All it did was feed the icky, gunky, humanness, ego type energy, right? So allowing things to be, I don't mean letting them go forever, but allowing space for things to occur, allowing people to process, allowing people to speak, hearing what's being said, right? It's beautiful. The same as what you just said. Sorry, typos. Yeah, I know, right? Like I said, I caught it. I was catching what you was throwing down. We translate typos very well. I noticed this exactly. I knew you would catch it. Communication, right? Vibration, frequency. Absolutely. Boom. Soul lens. Yeah. So hearing or seeing and understanding through the lens of our soul, lens of spirit, highest self, whichever, names and titles that you choose to use, versus just the humanness, which has been carrying around all that luggage, right? All of our memories that haven't fully processed yet, that have been waiting their turn to come up into our awareness so that we can assess where that's at, clear out anything that needs to be cleared, heal what needs to be healed, right? It is all of that process. And that when I say your truth, that part of the best you is the highest self. It's not the human ego stuff, right? And again, not that we're shutting the ego down either, but it's allowing that space. Remember, the element of the throat is space, allowing that space to be there so it can surface, so we can see, so we can learn, so we can gain a better level of understanding, so we can process through it, so we can clear it out, right? So then we can express more clearly and truly from the space of heart, love, spirit. It is beautiful, isn't it, Iona? Iona says, didn't work for me either, right? The forcing. Yeah. It just doesn't, does it? Because we're all human still. Yes, we're more than human, but we are still human also. And it says love languages, right? Exactly. So there are just exactly that. We all hear, understand, and express and feel love in different ways, and that's true for the way we communicate. Anna said, this is huge. It feels huge. Like I literally keep getting like lightheaded, which is fine and cool. I don't mind at all. It's needed, right? It's needed. It is needed. Iona says space. It feels lovely. It really does. There was a time in my life that it didn't. So back in those days that I was reflecting on and just sharing and calling out, those days it didn't feel lovely. Those days it felt very stressful and very challenging. And what would be the words I need to use? Because if I'm feeling defensive, then I'm feeling like attacked or mistreated or whatever, triggered in some way or another, right? To personalize and feel defensive. So yeah, all that stuff, ick. Not trying to have it at all. I'm so grateful that I have been able to release so much of that. Because that's rough. Like, no, I would not wish that on my enemies. Ick, no. Iona says downloads, baby, right? Yeah. So it'll be interesting to watch this replay. I got to say it, right? I got to hear it in one lens, so then I get to watch it back and hear it again. So that's cool. And it says the days before the spiritual awakenings, truth. Yeah. And all the differences since then. So it's already been a half an hour. Can you believe that? So thank you, everyone, for being on here with me, for sharing your time and space, for participating in the conversation. Feel free to drop them in the comments on replays after the video ends as well. If this resonates with you, please share it out. Check the description for all the links. Sign up on our calls. We have some amazing free offers in there, as well as some things that aren't free but extremely valuable. If you want to learn Reiki, hit me up. If you're ready to podcast and write your book and express that out in YouTube with work-life balance, let me express that. Definitely sign up with Iona. There is a link in there for her masterclass as well. Iona says, yeah, get off now. I know, right? It's like, okay, I said all I need to say, you guys. I'm done. Bye for now. I love you billions too. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Homework. See, I almost let that go. Good looking out. Thank you for that so much. So homework for today, again, increase that awareness, right? So we want to be aware. You want to assess where you're at and be in alignment with it. So check in with yourself to see what is your communication style? So you, in your awareness, how do you communicate? Do you communicate passively, aggressively, or assertively, or passive aggressively? Because there's actually 4 opportunities in that, right? Would you say that you speak from unconditional love, that highest self, soul, spirit, or do you tend to speak in projecting out that personalization, feeling defensive, all of that stuff, right? No blame, shame, and guilt for either one. You don't have to share if you don't want to. If you're comfortable sharing, that would be amazing. But this is for you, right? So journal on it for you. Be aware of it for you. Assess where you're at for you. Because if that's not the way that you communicate, you want to communicate in a different way, what's a step you can take to align with that, right? Same with listening. Do you allow yourself to listen to hear the whole message, whether it's from another human or if what I say like challenging or through meditation, channeling through meditation? Or do you listen for keywords? Do you listen for opportunities to say, oh, to just jump in with whatever that may be? Or do you allow the space for things to be as they are so you can fully understand what's coming in, or at least attempt to? Do you allow that acceptance, right? So that is your homework. Check in with yourself. Be aware of your communication style, so both expressively, verbally, and listening. Assess where you're at. Are you speaking from a space of highest self, or do you want to speak from a space of higher self? And if so, what's an action step you can take to align with that? There it is. Thank you. Thank you, love. So again, so much love to you. I will see you tomorrow, and tomorrow is Third Eye Chakra Healing. See you then. So much love. Bye, guys.